Welcome back to the podcast that exists to enrich and inspire young Latinos.
Bienvenidos al podcast que existe para enriquecer e inspirar a jóvenes latinos. Bienvenidos una vez más a este su podcast, La Alegría del Evangelio. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Jay.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for another episode. We have a very special guest. I hope you guys are excited.
El día de hoy tenemos a nada más y nada menos que a una invitada especial. Natali, gracias por estar con nosotros. Introduce yourself.
Thank you for the invitation. Mi nombre es Natali Barrios. Soy miembro de la comunidad de consagrados de Iskali. Soy la tesorera de Iskali. En lo personal, tengo 29 años. Tengo un hijo de 9 años. Trabajo con abogados. Soy un paralegal.
¿Tu cuenta de banco?
No, sí, es muy personal.
Bien, el día de hoy vamos a hablar un poquito sobre la pandemia, ¿no? Creo que el último año y medio hemos estado pasando por una situación, pues, yo creo que bastante difícil para nosotros, ¿no? El día de ayer, por ejemplo, compré una máquina para hacer ejercicio y el día de ayer me la llevó el muchacho. Y en el momento de bajarla de la camioneta y todo, platiqué un poquito con él y lo miré triste. Le dije, ¿estás bien? Me dijo, no, mi papá acaba de morir hace 2 meses de COVID. Y yo creo que a muchos de nosotros hemos tenido conversaciones así, ¿no? Sutanito está enfermo, Sutanito murió, la abuelita de mi mejor amigo. Creo que todos hemos tenido diferentes personas que han sufrido de alguna manera directa la pérdida de un ser querido durante la pandemia. Y yo creo que también la pandemia nos ha afectado a todos de alguna manera, ¿no? Hemos estado más aislados, con temor de salir. De repente hasta nos sentimos raros quitándonos la mascarilla. Y yo creo que es importante reflexionar, primero, de qué manera nos afectó la pandemia. Y segundo, ¿qué aprendimos de la pandemia? ¿No? ¿Qué piensan, muchachos?
Yeah, I think that reflecting right on the last year, I realized lots of things, really. But the biggest thing is probably how uncomfortable we are with being alone or being with just our families, like how used we are to being busy all the time. And I think that's like the thing that stuck out with me the most in the last year. And probably the thing that I'll take away with in the future and like how that's going to affect my life is that, one, I want to make sure that I'm okay being alone. You know, we don't ever expect this to happen again, but it's okay to just have that ability. And also that life could literally end any day. Like none of us, if we had told each other that was going to happen 2 years ago, would have been like, you're crazy. You know, like that's not how the world is going to turn out. So I feel like now more than ever, we always say like you could die tomorrow, but like you really could die tomorrow, right? Like you have to live like every day is your last day and take advantage of the time that we have. And I feel like we don't focus enough on our family and our friends and like the relationships that we have. And the thing that I've really learned in the last year is how important the people around me are and how valuable they are because they could be gone one day to the other.
To follow up with what Jay just said, the pandemic really forced me to literally like stop and take everything slow. I mean, from one day to the other, we were on lockdown. We were working from home. My son was learning from home. It was just like a 180 in our lives. And I was so used to having a routine. My life was always like rushing and running around and going from one place to the other. So it was very stressful at first. I remember like the first 2 weeks working from home, I would literally cry every day because I had to juggle working and then had to also help my son be e-learning, you know? So it was very hard. I mean, I live with my family, my parents, my brothers were also home. So we go from like my mom always being home and it's like now everyone's home. So it was also very stressful for her, you know, having everyone at home and just trying to find like a quiet space to focus. In terms of like what I learned from it, I learned to appreciate my family way more and spend time and learn things from my siblings and my parents that I didn't know before, you know, because we were forced to be home. We were forced to spend time together. And even about myself, like I was used to always doing something. And then it was like, now you're forced to be home and, do new things, whether it was reading. Last year when the pandemic started, we were in the process of getting consecrated. So all our meetings were now on Zoom. And that was like one thing that really helped spiritually for me, because we were holding each other accountable. Like we had our daily Zoom meetings, daily prayer. I actually taught my son how to pray the rosary with me. So I learned a lot of things. In a way, it was very hard going through this whole pandemic and getting used to new things, but I also learned a lot, and I felt like I grew professionally, also too, spiritually, as a mother and as a daughter.
Yeah. An interesting thought is family dynamics, right? Una de las cosas que sabemos que sucedió es que la violencia doméstica aumentó porque muchas parejas que quizás las cosas no estaban tan bien, ahora estaban forzadas a pasar tiempo juntos. Quizás personas que trabajaban por ejemplo, en restaurantes, ahora no tenían trabajo, y la realidad de no tener trabajo, la realidad de tener estrés, cómo vamos a pagar los biles, causó que la gente pues estuviera un poquito más estresada y quizás agresiva, ¿no? Sabemos que aumentó la violencia en las casas, pero también sabemos que otras familias utilizaron este momento como un momento para compartir el tiempo que antes no podían compartir, ¿no? Antes no habían podido compartir tiempo y la pandemia les permitió ahora sí que estar juntos. Y yo mirando un poquito cómo la gente actúa y reacciona, ¿no? Yo me he fijado que la gente sí está un poquito más estresada. Por ejemplo, miras en las carreteras que la gente después de la pandemia maneja como bien agresivo, ¿no? Te pitan, te rebasan. Y no era así antes de la pandemia, ¿no? Yo creo que de alguna manera la pandemia, depende cómo tú estabas. Si estabas en un buen lugar en tu vida, sacó algo bueno, positivo de ti. Si estabas en un lugar donde no era tan saludable, pues también quizás sacó algo negativo de ti, ¿no? Y yo creo que para todas las personas que nos están escuchando, yo creo que esta es una buena palabra, una buena pregunta para ti que estás escuchando este episodio. ¿Cómo es que la pandemia me afectó a mí? ¿Sacó algo bueno de mí? ¿Sacó algo negativo de mí? Y luego, si sacó algo bueno de ti, ¿qué es lo bueno que sacó de ti? ¿Y por qué? Si sacó algo negativo de ti, ¿por qué? ¿Cómo? Y también, ¿por qué? ¿Verdad? ¿Qué piensan, muchachos?
Yeah, I think for me, there was definitely a bit of both. Things that are positive that come to mind is my relationship with my dad in the last year has definitely flourished. A big part of that being because at the start of the pandemic, it was just he and I home alone. And we've never been super, super close to like just sit down and talk. So we were kind of forced to because we were the only people at the house. And in the last year, we've really grown. And, I actually, apart from him just being my dad, like now I feel like he's actually my friend for the first time in my life. And we just sit down and like just talk about anything and everything now. And that wasn't the case before. So I think that's definitely a good thing and like a gift that I got out of that. And I think it also forced me to really see what I was doing with my life because I quickly was able to see how it could all just end. And it motivated me to really set goals for my life and try to better myself in ways that I hadn't before because I didn't have the urgency before. Before I just thought I had endless time. And I think that played a big role. And now I'm like, okay, I'm not getting any younger. There's things that I want to do. I need to start actually doing them and not just talking about all my goals and my dreams and hopes and things like that. And I think in like maybe in a negative way, where it affected me was my relationship with God, right? Like at the beginning, I would say that it was not really there, right? At the start of the pandemic, the first few months when it was the really, really bad lockdown, I'd watch Mass on TV, but I'd be on my phone, like watching Mass, or I'd try to watch Holy Hour on YouTube, with the Santissimo on, live, but it's not the same. And I was doing Exodus 90 at the time, and my brotherhood kind of just fell apart because we couldn't see each other anymore, and we all kind of stopped doing the things that we were doing for Exodus, all the readings, the prayers, all the things that we had given up, watching TV, eating snacks. We were just like, well, there's nothing else to do but watch TV and eat snacks. So we started doing all that again. And the first few months, I really suffered for it spiritually. But I think that after a few months, I think it helped me realize how much I need God and how much I missed him. So then when a few months had passed and I had the opportunity to go back to church, I hopped on like the opportunity. I made sure that I took advantage of it. And I think it's been up since then. But I know that that's not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people still haven't gone back. And I think that that's something that's going to affect spiritual life and the parishes for a lot of communities, right? Where people are just, they're going to feel like they were without it for a year and maybe they don't really need it. But that's not the case. Like, we need it, and now more than ever, right? So I hope that the people listening to this, realize that just because the churches were closed for a couple of months, like, they've been open, and now right now in June, they're more open than they've ever been. They stopped requiring registrations and all that kind of stuff. So it's finally time to go back and look for God. So I hope that people take advantage of that.
I think for me, the positive things that I got out of the pandemic, during the pandemic, just being self-aware of who I was as a person, what I wanted in life, what I was doing in terms of like my service for others. One of the things that Iskali did was the food pantry. And that was very satisfying, because like Jay mentioned, like, we got used to, we were home watching TV, doing nothing. So when Iskali started that, I felt like that was a huge opportunity for me to give back to the community. And it was very rewarding, especially as we were delivering food and seeing like the families that we were delivering to, like their faces and how happy they were that, they were scared to go out and do grocery shopping themselves. So it just felt like we were doing something good. Despite everything that was going on, I was able to manage to give back and to service. And the other thing that, like Jay mentioned, it really, during the pandemic, really helped me, like, with my relationship with my mom. Definitely, like, my mom is my best friend. And you know how they say when you get older, you become your parents. So now I see, like, a lot of who my mom is. I see it in me. In terms of like the negative stuff, I think I would say that although I became aware of like who I was and like all my bad habits and stuff, I also noticed that I would always put myself last. And I still do sometimes, like, I try to do everything and I always like put myself last. I don't focus on my health. I don't focus on me. So that's probably one of the bad things that I realized, but I'm still like struggling with. Also spiritually, because in the beginning when we were doing consecration and we were meeting every day via Zoom, it was helping me because I felt like we were holding hands, through the process. And then as soon as like we kind of started going back into the normal life, like I started working in the office every other day and just having that routine again, I felt like I was also struggling keeping up with my spirituality and just holding myself accountable. And the fact that like we couldn't go to Mass in person. And one of the good things that my parish did, they started having Masses outside in the parking lot. So there's been, good and bad things that have helped me, and also I became aware of during the pandemic and still struggling with, but I'm working on it.
Hablando un poquito de lo que pasó en las parroquias, yo creo que para mí una experiencia muy, muy bonita fue que muchas veces en las parroquias había más gente voluntaria limpiando que en misa, por lo menos al principio, ¿no? Porque se necesitaba personas para registrar, se necesitaban personas para acomodar, personas para limpiar, personas para todo, ¿no? Entonces llegabas Y era impresionante. Llegabas a la parroquia y era impresionante el grupo de personas que se había entrenado y se había capacitado para facilitar el proceso para que las personas pudieran asistir. Y muchas veces a las personas que estaban en misa pues eran menos que las que estaban de voluntarias, ¿no? Ah, yo creo que eso es primero una llamada, ¿verdad? Para todas las personas para valorar el gran sacrificio que las parroquias hicieron para poder siguiendo proveer espacio que la gente pudiera ir a misa. Y yo creo que por otro lado, las parroquias por mucho tiempo han estado impuestas a que no tienen que hacer nada ni poner un extra esfuerzo y que la gente llega, ¿no? A, ¿no? A hacer iniciativas, ser intencionales en la manera que tratamos la gente, que inspiramos las personas, las maneras que invitamos a las personas a ser parte de la comunidad. Y de un día para otro, la gente dejó de venir. Y lo peor es que muchas veces a los líderes de las parroquias no sabían quién fue quien dejó de venir porque nunca habíamos tenido relaciones con ellos, no sabíamos quiénes eran, no sabíamos sus temores, sus esperanzas. Entonces yo creo que en la pandemia nos provee un espacio para, primero, valorar lo que las parroquias hicieron durante la pandemia, pero por otro lado, yo creo que es un espacio para que también las parroquias valoren a sus feligreses y decir, no siempre van a estar ahí. Un día se pueden desaparecer y esta vez fue la pandemia, la próxima vez puede ser por cualquier razón, ¿no? ¿Qué servicio, no? ¿Cómo estamos tratando a nuestros feligreses? Yo creo que también una de las cosas que yo hablé con mi papá es que dice, pues sí, vamos a misa, pero después de misa no podemos saludar a nadie. Dice, antes tan siquiera íbamos a misa y cómo han estado, platicas a alguien, ¿no? Dice, y la gente tiene tanto miedo que va a misa y sale corriendo, ¿no? No se quita ni la máscara, no saludas a nadie. Y yo creo que también la experiencia de atender a la iglesia, aparte de la experiencia eucarística y la vivencia sacramental, es la vivencia comunitaria, de mirar a personas, saludarlos, abrazarlos, ver a sus hijos crecer, no, muchos de nosotros miramos las mismas personas en misa y es una experiencia bonita. Entonces yo creo que también pudiéramos preguntarnos, y siendo un poquito crítico en esta, ok, queremos que la gente regrese, pero ¿qué vamos a hacer diferente esta vez? ¿Qué vamos a ofrecer de diferencia? No en el sentido de hacer cambios litúrgicos, sino de ¿cómo vamos a invitarlos a ser parte de comunidad? ¿Cómo vamos a invitarlos a participar más intencionalmente de lo que son los sacramentos, ¿no? Y no nada más decir, no, pues van a venir a misa y ya, no tenemos que hacer nada, no tenemos que hacer ningún esfuerzo extra para seguir hacia adelante, ¿no? Yo creo que sí, este es un muy buen momento de decir, ok, queremos que regresen los feligreses, sí. ¿Para qué? ¿Qué vamos a hacer? ¿Qué vamos a hacer como iglesia? ¿No? Tú decías algo muy interesante, Natali. Decías, durante la pandemia tuvimos una oportunidad para servir. Les llevamos comida a las familias que están infectadas de COVID. Qué bueno, ¿verdad? Que para muchos quizás la pandemia fue una oportunidad para servir, pero para otros, personas de fe, fue también una oportunidad para esconderse, ¿no? ¿Cuántas personas y cuántos líderes de fe, en vez de acompañar a la gente que tenía necesidades, no lo hicieron, ¿no? Entonces yo creo que también como iglesia debemos de ver estas oportunidades como una oportunidad para servir, para salir de nuestra zona de confort y servir a la gente que tiene necesidad en sus necesidades espirituales, pero también en sus necesidades corporales. Había gente que tenía hambre, había que darles de comer. No sé qué piensen de esto, muchachos.
Bueno, en lo personal, hablando sobre mi parroquia, creo que los voluntarios que estuvieron durante la pandemia, cuando empezaron a hacer las misas afuera, empezaron a vender comida para recaudar fondos, porque las parroquias necesitaban el dinero, económicamente necesitaban el dinero, porque como la gente ya no estaba yendo a misa, ya no había quien diera. Empezaron a tratar de hacer cosas para poder recaudar fondos y muchos de los voluntarios eran los mismos los mismos. Y aunque invitaran, o sea, la gente tenía miedo de salir, de ayudar, de estar cerca de otras personas. Pero igual, pienso que en lo personal, aunque pasó todo lo de la pandemia, mi parroquia sí trató de hacer, tenían hora santa afuera en el estacionamiento, cada quien en su carro. Empezaron con las misas, cada quien en su carro, y pasaba el padre a dar la bendición, la comunión. Pero ahora que ya estamos de regreso adentro de la parroquia, los números todavía están bajos. Y hoy acaban de anunciar que ya no nos tenemos que registrar, empezando creo que en 2 semanas ya no va a haber registraciones. So ya cada quien puede regresar a la iglesia como si fuera antes de la pandemia, sin registraciones, ya no van a tener tantos requisitos. Pero pues quién sabe si la gente regresa, que volvamos a tener una parroquia llena. Y creo que lo vimos también en Iskali, en las comunidades. Cuando regresamos en persona, había comunidades que iban 3, 4 personas. So, ha sido difícil.
Yeah, I think what I noticed was everybody had to get creative, like you were saying, new ways to bring people in. I know at St. Leonard we started doing confessions outside in the little patio, and at first people would come, like the first few weeks, because it was like, oh, we can finally go back to confession. But it slowly kind of died down as the summer went on, last summer. And I think masses for them were pretty consistent and actually did end up getting better. I think the holidays really helped because people are used to that tradition, right, of going to mass on Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all that kind of stuff. But now that they're open more, I do notice that there's still, right, the struggle of we're at maybe half of what we used to have, and how does that change? I don't think any of us really have the answer. What I hope happens is that as the rest of the world opens this summer, right, we're getting all of these festivals coming back and all this stuff that's happening in the city that's coming back. People are starting to go out more, and I hope that they remember that the churches are open too, right? Like, I know at the parish where my dad goes, they were broadcasting the masses live on Facebook every week. And as soon as they announced that they weren't going to require registrations anymore, they stopped the Facebook masses because people weren't coming to mass because they were just like, oh, I'll just watch it on Facebook in my sala. Like, I don't have to do anything. So I think things like that are also going to be important, right? Maybe parishes stopping the broadcasting on YouTube and Facebook and that kind of stuff, because otherwise they're not going to come back. Like, if you want the people to come, you can't give them an easy option, right? At the end of the day, you go to mass for the Eucharist, and if you're watching it on YouTube, well, you're not getting the point of the mass.
Yeah, there's always going to be that one parish that you can watch it. Yeah. So, si tu parroquia deja de transmitir de la misa, pues te vas a la que sí la transmite, ¿no? Pero es interesante, ¿no? Para mí es muy interesante porque yo creo que podemos hablar de los números en las bancas, pero yo creo que aquí es una conversación fundamental de dónde estamos como iglesia. La mayoría de gente que dejó de venir no la conocíamos.
Uh-huh.
No la conocíamos. Era gente que llegaba por tradición, que llegaba porque siempre iban a misa, pero ahora se fueron y no tenemos su número de teléfono, no tenemos su correo electrónico, no sabemos quiénes son. Y yo creo que esto debe ser una llamada de, hey, tenemos que despertar. Tenemos que ser intencionales en conocer las personas que servimos. Tenemos que ser intencionales en quizás la vieja regla de pay and obey, ¿no? Obedece y paga, quizás ya no es la regla que las nuevas generaciones van a seguir en la iglesia, ¿no? Que necesitamos la Eucaristía, sí, pero ¿cuántas de las personas que venían a misa no las evangelizamos para que sepan que necesitan la Eucaristía? ¿No? So, sí, hoy podemos decir, pues, si necesitas la Eucaristía tienes que venir, pero ¿evangelizamos? ¿No? Entonces yo creo que el llamado también es de decir, bueno, quizás lo que tenemos que hacer ahora es evangelizar. para que pueda haber un reawakening, ¿no? Un reavivar, un redespertar de las comunidades de fe. Y yo creo que sí hay una lección para aprender de que we cannot take people for granted. Porque un día la gente simplemente puede desaparecer. Y yo creo que sí debemos de ser intencionales y sí debemos de buscar una manera pastoral de responder a esto, porque yo creo que sí, esto puede ayudar muchísimo a la iglesia. Imagínate que hay iniciativas donde ahora los párrocos conozcan sus familias, conozcan la gente, conozcan los problemas que tienen. No solamente sepas, los veas cuando se bautizan, sino que sepas quiénes son, los acompañas en sus altas y bajas de la vida, ¿no? Yo creo que es una gran oportunidad para empezar a acompañar a la gente más de cerca, a caminar con ellos en sus vidas, ¿no? Y yo espero que no solamente nuestros líderes eclesiales lo hagan, sino que también nosotros como laicos comprometidos seamos parte de este proceso, ¿no? Porque el Padre no lo va a poder hacer todo, ¿no? Y no está supuesto a hacerlo todo. Entonces yo creo que también aquí a todos los que nos están escuchando, que no son sacerdotes, ni monjitas, ni consagrados, ni nada de eso, yo creo que aquí todos tenemos un papel que jugar, ¿no? Ok, ¿cómo va a ser la iglesia del futuro? ¿No? ¿Cómo vamos a acompañar a los que no regresen? ¿Qué pasa si no regresan? Vamos a decir, bueno, pues te vamos a pagar el Facebook y ya. O nos vamos a preocupar por ellos y decir, no, necesitamos ir a donde ellos están, ¿no? Yo creo que una de las cosas que mucho admiro del Papa Francisco es de que nos reta a no traer a la gente a la iglesia, sino de llevarle la iglesia a la gente. Una iglesia misionera, una iglesia en salida, una iglesia que sale de las cuatro puertas y que va y encuentra a la gente en sus momentos. Una iglesia en salida, ¿no? Una iglesia en misión. Y yo creo que es profético de alguna manera que el Papa Francisco sea nuestro Papa ahorita, porque desde antes de la pandemia el Papa estaba diciendo, tenemos que ser una iglesia en misión. No una iglesia que entra y se sienta en las bancas, sino una iglesia misionera que acompaña y va a buscar a la gente a donde está, ¿no? Entonces, no sé qué piensan.
I think that's something that we do here in Iskali, and I've noticed it especially in the last few months, really, where, like Natali mentioned earlier, people we all left, right? We all had to. We couldn't be meeting, and people slowly started to come back in the fall, the winter, and now that we're kind of going back into summer, I think all of us see it and we all feel it, the Iskali community kind of reawakening. And I think a lot of it has been because, like you said, we've gone out to look for people, right? I think we spent a couple months seeing who would come back on their own. And then after a while we were like, all right, well, that didn't work. Like now we have to go get people. Luckily, right, we had people's phone numbers and people's email addresses, and we knew where people lived and we were in contact with them. And that made it easy for us. And like you were saying, hopefully this is an opportunity for priests to accompany their families more intimately. And, for them to realize that, man, half of the families that come, I don't know other than by sight. And when they slowly, hopefully start to come back, or they go and find them somehow, that they are now more intentional about, okay, I have to walk with them because in case this happens again, or whatever happens again that causes them to leave, I can go and know where to find them. I think I've seen a good example of this, right, with us here in Iskali, and also I'm going to shout out Father Bobby. Father Bobby's really good at this, and I know he does it with a lot of jóvenes, right? Well, he'll see that they just kind of disappear from one day to the next, and just send them a text here and there. Hey, how are you? Let's hang out. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's catch up. And I know he's told me where he's had times where he has to send a text message every week, and it'll be months, but finally he gets them, and that kind of perseverance is what we need, right? What Pope Francis wants us to do, to not give up and keep poking people until eventually we get them to come back, or they invite us to go to them, like you said, and bring the church to them. I think that's one of the gifts that we have here in Iskali, is that we're able to bring the gospel to people, right? And even through this podcast, right? That's the point of why we do this, right? Is to bring the gospel to people's ears directly, wherever they are. And hopefully this is the start of a new chapter in the church, a new era, where we realize that people are so connected with technology, but so disconnected at the same time because of technology. And we have to change the way that things are done, because it's not going to work going into the future.
Ahorita estaba pensando en algo que hizo mi parroquia, el Padre Sergio, durante la pandemia. También juntó a voluntarios que fueran a llevarle la comunión a las personas que no podían salir de su casa. Con eso estábamos tratando de todavía involucrar a los que ya no podían regresar a la parroquia. Y hablando de la tecnología, de social media, cosas que I feel like algo que ayudó también la pandemia es usar la tecnología, social media, para cosas buenas. O sea, también lo de las misas, ponerlas en Facebook, YouTube, etc. Otra cosa que el Padre Sergio hizo en mi parroquia, daba clases de catecismo. Todos los jueves y viernes daba clases de catecismo en Facebook Live. También hacía una hora de Santísimo en Facebook Live. So in a way, like, he was evangelizing, and for those that couldn't come out of their homes, he was bringing, the word of God to them.
Yeah, we are lucky. We know some of the best priests in Chicago.
We sure do.
We do. Because if you're a good priest in Chicago, you like to work with Iskali. But yeah, this is all wonderful, right? And I really hope that as people are listening to this in different parts of the country, and si son amigos de un sacerdote, digan, hey, Father, why don't we do this? Hey, Father, how can I help you? I know that you're alone, because through the pandemic, a lot of priests were alone. They didn't have any support systems. They didn't have any friends. I think hasta nosotros, ¿verdad? Como seres humanos, yo creo que la pandemia nos aisló muchísimo, ¿no? Amanecía y oscurecías en la casa. Entonces, estaba difícil. Yo me acuerdo, pasó como un mes y medio que teníamos bastante comida y no salí de la casa, y el primer día que salí dije, chif, el sol brilla mucho. Se me había olvidado que tanto brillaba el sol, ¿no? En el sentido de que tú dijiste algo interesante ahorita, Jay. A través de la tecnología tenemos literalmente cientos de maneras por cual comunicarnos con personas cerquitas y lejos de nosotros a la misma vez. ¿No? Video call, FaceTime, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, Telegram, email, etc.
Zoom.
TikTok, Zoom, Teams, ¿no? Literalmente hay Skype. Tenemos miles de maneras de comunicarnos por tecnología, y cada vez son mejores. Pero es triste muchas veces sentarnos alrededor de la mesa de alguien, en algún lugar, en alguna casa, con algunos amigos, y estás delante de personas interactuando cara a cara y la gente está en el teléfono, ¿no? Estás en el cuarto con alguien y prefieres estar en contacto con alguien que no esté en el cuarto, ¿no? Entonces yo creo que también es un reto para todos nosotros cómo hacer conexiones auténticas, verdaderas, reales con la gente con la que estamos a nuestro alrededor, ¿no? Tú dices, no, pues yo compartí tiempo con mi papá y ahora puedo decir que es un amigo. Pero también la otra cara de la moneda pudo haber sido, estaba con mi papá todo el día, él estaba mirando su televisión y yo la mía, ¿no? Es decir, siempre hay dos opciones, ¿no? Y yo sí me gustaría retar a las personas que nos están escuchando ¿cómo están las relaciones con tu familia, no? En la pandemia, antes de la pandemia, durante la pandemia y después de la pandemia, ¿mejoró algo o no? ¿No? Y yo creo que la pandemia yo espero, ¿verdad, Señor? Dios, Santísima Trinidad, escúchame. Me gustaría saber que yo creo, ojalá que la pandemia, para los que sobrevivimos, primero estar agradecidos. Yo estoy bastante agradecido. Desde que dijeron que... Mejor no digo. Estoy agradecido que sobreviví. Nomás lo voy a dejar así. Pero, ¿is this a wake-up call? Una llamada de alarma. De decir, ¿cuál es el propósito de tu vida? Mañana te puede dar una enfermedad y te puedes morir. ¿Y qué dejaste atrás de ti? ¿Cuál es tu huella? ¿Qué estás haciendo? ¿Fuiste a la escuela? ¿No fuiste a la escuela? ¿Cómo tratas a tu mamá, a tu papá, a tus amigos? ¿Qué estás creando, no? Y yo sí espero que al salir de la pandemia tengamos una actitud de vulnerabilidad y también de agradecimiento, de decir, tenemos delante de nosotros la oportunidad de hacer con nuestra vida algo grandioso. Ojalá todos aquellos que sobrevivimos COVID y esta pandemia hagamos algo que haga que valió la pena que hayamos sobrevivido, ¿no?
I think like you said, I'm really blessed to have survived, right? All of us are, to still be here after the insane year and a half that we've had. And like I was saying earlier, right, one of the big things that I learned was that I'm not getting any younger and I have to do something with my life because it could end at any moment. And I think it is important for me to leave a legacy, right? And I don't mean that in that I want to be famous and have the world know me, like that doesn't matter, but that I want to leave a legacy with my close friends and family, right? That they know that when I leave, they know that he did his best at whatever he did, whatever he tried to do, that he gave it his all, that I loved to the best of my ability, and that I was a good Catholic, because that's also super, super important for me, right? For people to see me as that. So I feel like right now, yeah, like I've never been more awakened in my life, right? And more like full of energy and willing to work and put in the effort to make my life the best that I can. And I think for a lot of people, it did that. But like you said, for a lot of, there was the two options for a lot of people. It kind of just allowed people to close more into their shell and kind of just hide from the problems of the world. And so it's up to us to walk with each other now more than ever. I often say that a good friend, right, will carry you when you need to be carried, and is going to allow you to carry them when they need it also. And I feel like right now we're at a crossroads where half of us are willing to carry people, half of us are needing to be carried, but we don't always meet and actually let that happen. And so those of us that are feeling like me, where I feel like I can carry people right now, we need to make sure that we do it, because I know I have friends that I can carry right now that need me, and down the road when I need to be carried, they'll carry me. I think that's super important, right? And that's not just in the spiritual sense, but in every sense of being carried. Vicente, you and I have talked a lot about sainthood and how it's attainable for us, and I feel like that's one of those things that if we want to get there as a community, that has to be a really important part to carrying each other, and that I'm going to carry you when you need it, you carry me when I need it. I feel like that's how we begin to move forward, and that can also be applied to the churches, how we bring people back, right? People that need to be carried, let's go and let's pick them up. And those of us listening that need to be carried, we have to allow ourselves to be carried.
I think going back to the question of like your purpose in life, and all last year, that was something that kept coming up, and in my life, like, what are you doing with your life? What is your purpose? What is God calling you to do? And I think throughout the year and just reflecting and based on what I was doing, I knew that despite everything, like, God wants me here. He wants me doing service. He wants me doing for others, and it's funny because being a mom, working full time, and still being in Iskali, a lot of my friends would tell me, like, when are you going to leave Iskali? You know, like, you're 29. What are you doing in Iskali? It's a bunch of, like, young people, you know? And basically, I feel like this is my service, you know? This is me giving back to the community, giving back to other jóvenes that perhaps they're learning from me, as well as me learning from them, you know? I think that something that Iskali did in my life was open my eyes and see that there's people that have it way worse than I did, you know, and realities. So just giving back, being there, like Jay said, having people to carry you or you carrying other people. I think that that's something that I really appreciated all last year, because people were vulnerable. All last year, it just opened wounds, it opened our realities, and we got to know each other and within our families, you know, and friends that perhaps you wouldn't have real, like, serious conversations with, like, we started doing that. Or at least, like, I feel like me personally, I started having more serious conversations with my friends, and it just, I appreciate it, you know, and knowing that anything can happen tomorrow, that I can die tomorrow. Like, even last year, my dad was like, we need to update my will, you know, like, for you to be thinking about that, it's like, you know, it's serious. It's hard. It's rough. But I'm blessed that my family, like, although we had COVID and stuff, we didn't have to go through.
You go had through what?
I had COVID last year in May, and then my parents got it, which is so weird. I was the only one that had it in my household in May. And at the end of the year, my parents had COVID, and thankfully, it wasn't too bad for them, because I have family and friends who lost, you know, loved ones, their siblings, parents, and I'm just grateful that I didn't have to go through that.
Well, hemos llegado al final. Me gustaría cerrar con palabras de esperanza y me gustaría simplemente decir, la esperanza está en el horizonte. Yo creo que as we come back to normality, como regresamos a la normalidad, yo espero que no regresemos siendo los mismos de antes. Espero que no regresemos pensando igual que antes, actuando igual que antes, siendo las mismas personas con las mismas carencias. Espero que el sufrimiento de la pandemia haya valido la pena y deje en nosotros la semilla de la esperanza que todos podemos ser mejores. Que el Espíritu Santo, la Santísima Trinidad, la Virgen de Guadalupe y los santos que nos acompañan nos ayuden a imaginarnos un mundo nuevo, y ojalá que ahora que regresamos a las quinceañeras, a las fiestas, a las bodas, valoremos cada abrazo que podemos dar, cada sonrisa que podemos ver, porque hubo momentos donde no podíamos ni abrazar ni sonreír.
Yeah, I feel like we're given a new opportunity, right? And the world talked a big game this last year, and we all said that there was so many problems in the world that needed addressing, and we talked about it a lot. People protested, we marched, we did all these things, and it's time to stop talking and it's time to start doing. And like you said, there's a new horizon, right? We're seeing the end finally at the end of this pandemic, and I just really hope that people do something, right? Like I was saying earlier, I'm super motivated to change my life and start to live the future that I want. And hopefully everybody can do that, right? Everybody can just take some time to reflect on what this past year has been for them and what they want to change moving forward, and not just talk about what they've learned, but live that out every day.
I think my last words of inspiration, motivation would be live your day like if it were your last, and live a life that's intentional and with a purpose. Because if you're still living with no purpose, you're not doing anything with your life, you're not happy, then the only one that can change that is yourself. If you don't work for yourself and you don't do it yourself, nobody else can help you.
And if you need help, go to iskali.org, write us a message, and we will be happy to welcome you into our community. You are not meant to walk alone. You are not meant to be alone. Aquí en Iskali tomamos pride en acompañar y caminar juntos como hermanos, camino hacia el cielo. Así que gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy. Gracias por preferir su podcast, La Alegría del Evangelio. Gracias por experimentar con nosotros lo que es la alegría del Evangelio. No olviden mandar este podcast a sus amigos favoritos si hubo algún momento de reflexión. Gracias por su apoyo y aquí nos miramos pronto.
No olviden seguirnos en Instagram y en Facebook en Iskali Podcast.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Iskali Podcast.
Listen with us and experience the joy of the gospel.
Escúchanos y experimenta la alegría del Evangelio. Te esperamos.
Dare to dream.
Atrévete a soñar.